All right, and we're live. And thank you all for tuning in to this Ustream YouTube channel. I am Minister G.L. Harden, and I'm broadcasting for the Holy Spirit's radio show. But we're doing something a little different. We're doing it live, and we're doing it via Ustream YouTube. And we'll be going back to the Blog Talk Radio sometime next month, as well as continuing the live version. But I wanted to get a few of the live versions out first to get all our viewers and listeners acclimated to watching us live as well. So we're going to get right to it, man. As you all may or may not know, there's been a lot of issues going on about these missing girls all across the globe. And I did a wonderful show actually back in 2013, 4 years ago, dealing with, back then, it was estimated around 64,000 young black and brown women are missing, but mainly black women are missing. And I did a part one and a part two of that show. You can go to the my Blog Talk Radio, Holy Spirit's radio show, and check out those podcasts of that show where I talked about the statistics that were given from the FBI about how many black women are missing a day, not just a year. This is a daily thing that's going on, and what am I ashamed of is that black folks are finally catching on, and particularly black men. And I'm going to talk about black men in just a moment. But nevertheless, this is a serious crisis, people. You know, many people out there are talking about maybe it has to do with organ stealing. Some people are saying that they're using the melanin to create these capsules for the global elites, because as you may or may not know, by the year 2050, most white folks will be wiped off this planet completely, and it will be a melanoid nation by that time. And see, no matter what they're doing, everything has to go back to the original, because God is not going to destroy Earth. Oh no, God is going to destroy man. So the ones who are causing the most havoc were the last one to arrive on this earth. And that's why the Bible says the first shall be last and the last shall be first. You were the last one here, but you're going to be the first one gone. That's what that meant. So I read this article. I'm going to play an excerpt from my broadcast I did in a moment. But I read this article, man, that was talking about these girls missing, because everybody's talking about it. You know, all other leaders and people in the conscious community are talking about it, but they're not telling you the statistics, because you got to first get to the source of the problem, the root of the problem, and it didn't start. It didn't just start with these 10 to 9 black girls that's been missing from D.C. in the past 2 weeks. Oh baby, this has been going on for decades. I mean decades. So we have a lot of work to do dealing with why are these black women going missing, and the mere fact that, as I said on my show in 2013, the FBI is just saying, oh, these are runaways. That's what they're saying. They're calling the surge of missing young black women runaways, and we know that's not to be the case. And that's why I really wanted to bring this show and to do this show the way I did, because how in the hell can you call 64,000 black women runaways? Now, don't get me wrong. Of course, there are some runaways dealing with it, but so many of these young sisters have never been found. And I'm telling you, man, I urge you to go and check that episode out I did, man, because you'll be amazed of how many women that have gone missing. I remember a young girl, a college kid, was in South Carolina, and she went missing. And they found, I think, they found her body a few days later, but unfortunately, the police in South Carolina was saying the same thing. She might be a runaway. How the hell you in college at the University of South Carolina? You're an honor roll student, and all of a sudden, you decide to pack it up and get the hell on. That is the evilness. Is what's plaguing this whole thing, man. With these babies being missing. The fact that people are not taking it seriously. Black men aren't making enough noise. And I'm going to play this wonderful insert by our dear brother, D.L. Hughley. He had a wonderful comment dealing with this issue, man. I thought that thing was powerful, what he had said, dealing with the missing women and calling out men, and I've been calling out black men from day one, and people always get so defensive and so sensitive about it, but this thing is serious, man. I can't say it anymore how serious this issue is. And again, these women are going unnoticed. And finally, thank goodness, people are talking about it, but that's just only a start. So this article came out of a refinery, and it talks about the black and Latinos, teenagers that keep coming up missing, primarily in D.C. Wonderful article that was written by this sister. I think her name was Ramirez, Andrea Gonzalez Ramirez. Wrote this wonderful article about lawmakers are calling for the authorities to investigate whether there's an increase in the number of black and Latinos teenagers that are disappearing in D.C. in the metro area. And this came by the Associated Press. And on social media, people are using the hashtag missing DC girls to bring attention to this issue, man. And according to the AP, there were 501 cases of missing teenagers, and many of them black and brown in that district area over the last 3 months. 501. And 22 of the cases remain unsolved as of March 22nd. It's so amazing. And in a period of less than 2 weeks, they had 10 black and brown girls came up disappearing in the DC area. But it's very likely that you haven't seen their faces or heard their names unless you faithfully watch either the DC news or some type of social media. But thanks to Twitter, Facebook, and Black Marble Girls, who shared pictures of the 8 black girls who had been reported missing, the news quickly went viral last weekend. And some of the teenagers have thankfully been found in the last couple of days. But still, that leaves 2 questions unanswered. Where are the remaining kids? And why haven't this has taken a national news, which, as we know by now, It is taking national news by storm. And I think earlier this week in Chicago, man, somebody broadcast his sister, young teenage girl. I think she was raped live on social media. She was kidnapped, of course, and raped on live on social media. Again, I'm gonna talk about these sorry ass Negroes in just a moment and this rap shit. I remember back in the '70s. I mean, I think back in the late '70s, early '80s, when the disco thing was crazy, and this radio jockey in Chicago, he was so sick of disco music that at a baseball game, he had people bring all their disco records down and he burnt the shit out of them to end that era. And I'm on the verge of telling black folks, let's just take all these rap CDs and shit and burn the fuck out of them. Pardon my French, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm just tired of grown ass man, 30-some years old, 40 years old, singing rap songs about bitches and hoes. What kind of man are you? And they got kids, they got girls. You popping your finger like a female. That bitch, that hoe. What kind of man are you? So currently, there were two 13-year-old girls that went missing. And a 15-year-old girl, I think her name was Juliana Otero, Jacqueline Lassie, and Deshawn Trika Wallace, and Diana White, and Morgan Richardson, and a 16-year-old named Talisha Coles. These girls are still missing in that DC area. And again, man, this thing is serious. This thing is so serious that we have to be extremely vigilant when talking about this matter of all these young girls are coming up missing. So amazing, man. So amazing. And that's why I always say, man, that you gotta know you have to have a community, not a neighborhood, as they say, but you gotta have a community, because in that community is where you can create family, and you can create a bond, building blocks of everybody knowing everybody. And without that, you got these children walking around aimlessly in the streets and nobody caring. Nobody's looking out for them. Nobody's making sure that they're okay. And like now, most people don't know who the hell their neighbors are. They have no clue. They have no clue who the hell their neighbors are. And that's where we're falling short, because there's no more accountability in black neighborhoods. Back in the day, you can tell your neighbor you go into the store and wash the house, and that's exactly what they do. Okay, all right, I got you. I'm going to the store. The kids in the house. I'll be back after a while. Boom, got you. That's no longer the case. No longer do we look out for each other's children. That was saying, am I my brother's keeper? Now black folk like, they ain't got nothing to do with me. I just mind my business. And even the church preaches that way, in a subconscious way, to teach people to be quiet, praise the Lord, and mind your damn business. And it does it in such a subconscious way that the only time they're concerned about the community is in the summertime when people are on vacation. Now they got this whole. I mean, I'm talking about all denominations. Now they got this crap where they say bring your neighbor to church because the numbers are down. So now they want you to bring your neighbor to church or somebody to church to get those numbers back up. And again, what am I ashamed that is? What am I ashamed that is? And it's got to change, people. It's got to change. I'm gonna play an insert moment from my show. I'm dealing with this thing, man. Play it in just a moment. But I'm gonna play this insert, man, real quick from my brother D.L. Hughley, and he's talking about the missing girls. But also he's talking about the men and why these girls are missing and how this stuff can continue to go on and on.
Heard that, and something happened to that cat tells me everything. And I'm not asking you fast. I'm saying this: if you saw a man put his hands on a sister like that, and you watched it, you're a coward. They are being treated like animals because they think we treat them like that. You don't put your listen. I don't care what she was doing or not doing. I don't care if she was going to jail. Send her to jail, but you don't manhandle her like she's garbage you throw around. And the fact that y'all march instead of putting your foot in that dude's ass tells me everything I need to know. They are ours to take care of. Ours. And the fact that people are doing what they do to them lets us know that that's how they think we see them. The only reason you exist as a man, is particularly a black man, is to protect your woman and your children. And if you're not doing it, you don't belong here. What's the point of having a set of balls if they mean absolutely nothing when it comes?
My man D.L. Hughley, and he was talking about the issue that happened last a couple of weekends ago with the young sister who was manhandled in the beauty store. It was actually two sisters that were being manhandled in a beauty store, and he was just going on record saying that where were the men at in the beauty store, and why didn't any man step up and whoop the deal with the white guy or the Asian guys who jumped on the sister. But the overall scenario to this whole thing, what's so crazy is he's also saying on how black men talk to black women, on how black men treat black women. And that's a crime in itself. That's a major crime in itself. On how black men talk to our sisters. That's got to change, man. I saw this wonderful a piece last night called Malice, and it was on Netflix, and it was about this group, two brothers back in the day called the Clips. Wonderful piece, man. It's only 42 minutes long. I urge you to watch it. And these guys were huge back in early 2000s and whatnot, and had a lot of straight hits back then. They toured and they made a lot of money, and one was called Pusha T. I don't know his original name, but his other brother back then, his rap name was Malice, but together they were called Clips. And but his real name was Gene Thornton, the Thornton brothers. But Gene Thornton was the primary of this little documentary because what happened to him was he said when they got huge and people had tattooed on their face clips, and the albums on their face, and they were like, wow, they felt, well, Gene particularly just felt like, man, this is crazy. I'm not worthy of all this attention. I'm just a rapper. I'm just an entertainer. But then his soul began to speak to him, and the spirit began to speak to him. But he couldn't identify with it uh, at that particular time. So then he said, him and two of the brothers was talking, and a sister walked by and asked him about, did he know Christ and did he receive Christ? And they thought it was funny at the time. And she basically told him, Christ. I'm just paraphrasing, but she told him how Christ loved him. And then they shoved her off, not shoved her off physically, but they just brushed her off, and so be it. And over the course of the next couple of years, he was battling with good and evil, right and wrong, because he felt bad about the lyrics what he was writing, because as they traveled the world and they saw all these fans, his fan base, he realized how powerful words were, and what he was writing. And just hang on with me because I'm going somewhere. And it began to bother him, and he was smoking weed every day, getting high every day, partying with the women, the whole scene. But he was troubled, and it became more and more a struggle for him just to go in the studio and record and so on and so forth. But nevertheless, he kept trying to do it, and but then his conscience began to speak to him. And then he said he finally had a moment where he just really broke down. And God began to speak to his spirit in his heart. And then he declared he received Christ as his Lord and Savior. But I'm just giving you the gist of it. And he decided no longer will he be a part of something demonic as a rap game. Writing song, smut, talking about going to the hotel, sleeping with this girl, giving it to my friend, and no longer did he want to be a part of something, because he understood the magnitude of those lyrics and those words, because it affected people, and people believed him, and people wanted to live those lyrics, young people. So he denounced the rap game entirely. Now he still tours, but he's more of a gospel rap artist than anything. And they've been trying to get this boy since 2009 to come back with his brother and do a new album. I mean, they offered him millions and millions of dollars, and he said he won't do it. He said he won't sell his soul out to the devil. And I say all this to say that that's a real man, and that's a man of God, understanding and overstanding the power of words. I used to tell young cats all the time when I went to some young kids over at Morehouse and Spelman and Clark Atlanta University, and here in Atlanta, you start singing them songs in your head, and it gets in your spirit. You got all these guys, Lil Wayne and Drake and all them. I call them bubblegum rappers, creating all this fantasy about degrading women, call them out their names. Then you go get your girlfriend, and as soon as she says something you don't like, what do? Call out her name and degrade her, because that has seeped down into your conscience. And every time a woman upsets you, especially a black woman, even if she go to church every day, celibate, you still gonna say, man, that hoe get on my nerve. Because that all that negativity that you're listening to feeds into your spirit and comes out of your mouth naturally. And then you wonder why these women in their 20s and 30s can't find a good man because they ain't grown up yet. I used a perfect analogy one time. I told his brother, he was 38 years old, he popping his finger and dancing. He got 2 girls, 7-month-old baby, no, 1-year-old baby, and a 5-year-old little girl. He got a bunch of kids, but I know he got 2 girls. He in there popping his finger, yeah, ho, I dropped that hoe off. So he got mad. I'm gonna tell you why he got mad. Because I told him, I said, let me give you an analogy. You had a 17-year-old white boy, 17-year-old black boy in high school. They jamming the rap. They love rap music. Smoke a little weed, might drink, whatever. Fast forward 18 years later, white boy 35, black boy 35. White boy somewhere in a Fortune, even without a degree, the white boy somewhere in a Fortune 500 company working and managing it. The black boy still someone snapping his fingers, fresh out of jail, still saying the same, that hoe, that hoe, that hoe, that hoe, same thing. And one of the main reasons is because our youth today have a hard time connecting with elders. I get so many young cats say, man, you old, you brothers. Instead of listening, taking advice, they rather take advice from a social media. Oh, Jay-Z said this. Oh, they ain't heard it, but they believe it. Oh, yo, Jay buying this or Jay buying that. And again, no offense to Jay-Z, I commend that brother, especially with that Khalid Browder thing he did, man. A big ups to Jay-Z, man. That wonderful documentary about our dear brother, the late Khalid Browder, and may his mother soul rest as well. Wonderful piece. But my point is, the white kid gonna listen to either the elders or older people. Black kid won't do that. Black kids so busy looking at, if you ain't got a shiny car or some flashy money, that's their God. And they would talk that from a young age. Because by the time they get in the car, come home from the hospital, the mama and the dad in the car playing rap music. He turned 2, he got 2 earrings in his ear, wearing a pair of Timberlands or Jordans with the hat on backwards, if he's a boy. So we're teaching them materialistic things straight out the womb. And nothing about business. Entrepreneurship. That's what the white boy learned. Yeah, they let their little kids run around like a fool. But sooner or later, they're gonna reel them in. And they're gonna get them on that straight and narrow. And that same kid you was jamming with in high school, now he your damn boss. So amazing. The lack of unity in our community and the lack of leadership in our community. But not only that, the lack of parenting and failing our kids. You're teaching our kids to disrespect older people and to look at the rich and wealthy people and think that's it. And think that's, oh yeah, God bless me because you got money. Hell, Al Capone had money. Donald Trump got money. Is God blessing him? So we know it ain't money. We're losing people. We're losing this battle. I'm telling you. And we got to wake up soon, man. We have to wake up soon. And as y'all may not know about that Obamacare thing, or the Affordable Act Care is what it's actually called, Affordable Care Act. It got dismissed in the House. It was vetoed no, I guess, in the House. And as Donald Trump said that it was going to go, it was going to get passed. But you got to understand the underlining of why this thing, why Republicans so desperately want to get rid of the Affordable Act Care. And trust me, it has to do with money. anytime you see Republican people, never, never, ever is it about the American people, the benefit for the American people. It always is about the wealthy. I want you to listen to this thing about why by Robert Reich. He's telling you the reason why Republicans, they wanted to repeal Obamacare, and who it would have benefited. Check this out.
Don't be hoodwinked by Trump's and Republican promises to repeal and replace Obamacare. They can repeal it, but never replace it. The result would be more than 32 million people losing their health insurance and a huge redistribution of wealth from the working class to the very rich. Republicans can't create a replacement plan that keeps the promises they've made to keep for everyone covered.
Are you going to make sure that people with preconditions are still covered?
Yes.
I'm not going to cut Social Security like every other Republican, and I'm not going to cut Medicare or Medicaid.
So why do Republicans want to repeal Obamacare and leave millions without insurance? Because it would mean a huge tax windfall for the wealthy. Repealing Obamacare will put an average of $33,000 of tax cuts in the hands of the richest 1% this year alone, and a whopping $197,000 of tax cuts into the hands of the top 0.1%. The 400 highest income taxpayers, with incomes averaging more than $300 million each, will each receive an average annual tax cut of about $7 million. It would also increase the taxes of families earning between $10,000 and $75,000, including just about all of Trump's working class voters. So what we end up with when Republicans repeal Obamacare is 32 million people losing their health insurance, tens of thousands of Americans dying because they don't get the medical care they need, Medicare in worse shape, and the rich becoming far richer. This is lunacy. We must stand up to it.
So amazing. Always, man, anytime you're dealing with them fools, I'm talking Republicans, there's going to be something involved that benefits them. Every single time. There's going to be something involved.
If you just said something, I didn't hear what it was.
Something involved that benefits them. So this wonderful article dealing with the black family. It says how the black middle class kids become poor adults. Wonderful article that I want to bring to you real quick. It talks about how once they've grown up, African American children are more likely than their white counterparts to backslide into a lower economic group. And it talks about financial, when it comes to financial stability, black Americans are often in much more precarious financial situations than white Americans. And the unemployment rate is higher, and so is the level of poverty within the black community. And back in 2013, the poverty rate among white Americans was 9.6%. And among black folks, it was 27.2%. And that gap between the wealth of white families and black families have widened to its highest level since 1989, according to this study from the Pew Research Center they did back in 2014. And the facts of this rift aren't new or all that surprising, but perhaps what's most unsettling about the current economic climate back in black America is that when black families attain middle class status, the likelihood that their children will remain there better, do better, it's not high at all, what I'm trying to say. And even black Americans who make it to the middle class are likely to see their kids fall down that ladder. And this has come from Richard Reeves. He's a senior fellow at the Brookings Institution. And in a recent blog post, Reeves says that 7 out of 10 black children who are born to families with income that falls in the middle quintile of the income spectrum will find themselves with income that's 1 to 2 quintiles below their parents during their own adulthood. And real quick, shout out to J.B. Bryan, wonderful sister, man. I encourage you to go to her YouTube page and like her page, man. J.B. Bryan is a wonderful financial advisor. She owns her own company. I'm not saying it right, but it's a long title. But this sister's going around the Washington D.C. area, Baltimore, Virginia, and she's really helping to empower black communities throughout that region. And I'm gonna try to get her in Atlanta, hopefully sometime in October, God willing, to get this sister out, man, because she is really changing lives, man. I know Dr. Boyce Watkins has his boot camp, and shout out to him too. But she's changing lives. I mean, people are buying businesses, they're buying stocks, they're reinvesting in their communities. I mean, she is changing lives, man. So we got to get that. I mean, I just pray we get that sister in Atlanta, man, to really galvanize and begin to move the people of God. So in 2014, from the Federal Reserve Bank of Chicago, it looked at factors like parental income, education, and family structure. Shows a similar pattern. And many black Americans not only fail to move up, but show an increased likelihood of backsliding, according to that study. In the recent decades, blacks have experienced substantially less upward integrational mobility and substantially more downward integrational mobility than whites. And the greater probability of slipping back applies to blacks across income groups. According to the Fed study, about 60% of black children whose parents had income that fell into the top 50% of the distribution saw their income fall into the bottom half during adulthood. And this type of downward slide was common for only 36% of whites. But that gap in mobility was also significant from lower class families as well. For most of the bottom half of the income distribution, the racial differences in upward mobility are consistently between 20 and 30%. If future generations of white and black Americans experience the same rate of integrational mobility as these cohorts, we should expect to see that blacks on average would not make any relative progress. That's coming from an economist, a senior economist. I think his name is Bashakir Mazumba. If I'm saying the name right. But the explanation for this phenomenon are varied, but largely hinge on many of the criticism that already exists in regard to socioeconomics and race in the U.S. economists, cite lower educational attainment, high rates of single-parent households, and geographic segregation as potential explanation for these trends. And the latter determines not only which could play a role in hindering their education and profession attainment later on. According to Reeves, in terms of opportunity, there are still two Americas divided by race. So still most economists lack a clear, definitive explanation for why, after reaching the middle class, many black families quickly lose that status as their children fall behind. And again, one of the reasons I'm telling you is we don't practice group economics. I want to also get you guys to really check out our dear brother, Dr. Claude Anderson, and go to, you can go to Dr. Claude Anderson's website, and he's written a few books dealing, one book called Black Labor, White Wealth, wonderful book, another book called Powernomics. But if you can go to his website, You can get his books. Actually, you can probably get his books. If I'm not mistaken, um, you can get his book. I think all four of his books. You can get those books for about if I'm not mistaken, for about $70. You can get all those books by Dr. Claude Anderson, all the books that he's written. Because what Dr. Claude Anderson left, man, real quick, is a blueprint on how we can overcome poverty in this country. And I'm using his blueprint on how we can do that and do it effectively, man. I mean, it is so prevalent that we begin to walk in our destiny. And again, big ups to Dr. Claude Anderson for really putting this thing together. And he did it, years ago. And we can go and begin to walk in that thing today. And I'm gonna leave you with a quick insert from my dear brother, Dr. Claude Anderson, in just a second, man, because I just want you to understand and understand, how.
If you just said something, I didn't hear what it was.
How important it is that we begin to have some form of group economics. And I'm telling you, the fact that this survey, this study from the Federal Reserve in Chicago tells us that the mere fact that the mere fact that the parents who are middle class, are even greater than that.
Turn our attention now to the man with the plan. His name is Dr. Claude Anderson. The reason why I call him,
the fact that their offspring will end up poorer than them is a prime example of the fact that we're not teaching. We're not teaching them how to bank at an early age, how to invest at an early age, how to save at an early age. What we do is we just put them through school, all private school, we go through the routine, but we don't personally. We allow a school to teach them what the parent, the mother, and the father should teach them about group economics and where to spend their dollars and how to spend their dollars and get the most out of their dollars and to give back to that community. And that's what we're failing at. And that's all I want to say. Listen, man, my time is up, man. I'm glad you guys check this out. And again, I want to leave you with a little insert from our dear brother, Dr. Claude Anderson, talking about group economics and what the issues are with that.
the man with the plan. Someone's got a plan that's specifically for Black America. Dr. Anderson, welcome back to WOL Radio.
Oh, thank you, Carl. I'm always delighted with the fact that you can remember me and invite me back.
Oh, I have to, because you've been saying for a long about this wealth gap between blacks and whites. And you said that during the last 8 years, the wealth gap widened a lot. Why so?
Well, it has never been closed, but it's pretty much where it was, I guess, at the end of the Civil War in 1860. Black folks still control almost the exact same amount of wealth that they did at the end of the Civil War. Or that not even the end of the Civil War, at the beginning of the Civil War was about 0.5% of 1%. You only had about 287,000 black folk that were free at that time out of nearly 5 million. And those few blacks that successfully acquired about 0.5% of 1% of the nation's wealth. And it stayed pretty well consistent to that up until the present time. And that's why it's just humorous to me. People always talk about black folk can overcome. Black folk haven't got a snowball chance in hell of being able to be successful and be competitive in society unless they change that wealth gap. The typical white person at the end of the Civil War had 3,500 times more wealth than the average black person. It's still there. We got about 3 or 4 white people in this country right now that got more wealth than all 44 million black folk put together. That's how bad it is. And As a matter of fact, when to answer your question, when Reagan came into office, and I was with President Carter at that time in the White House staffing, I was in his sub cabinet. At that time, when Reagan came in between 1982 and 1984, the numbers and the games that he played with our system and with the wealth building for whites, the wealth building for whites shot up. It was from 82 up to about 86 in that 4-year period. That the number of white millionaires in the country went up over 300%, and the number of white billionaires went up over 600%. Right now, we got about somewhere between 450 to 500 billionaires, multi-billionaires in America. And out of 450 to 500 white billionaires, you got about 3 blacks. Black folk haven't got a snowball's chance. And as a matter of fact, it's the wealth that decides your equal opportunities in the society, not civil rights and social integration. It's what you own and control. Black folk from Connecticut to San Diego own and control 1/2 of 1% of anything of value. They haven't got a chance unless they learn how to redistribute this wealth. And that's what we should be focusing on. And the wealth that white folk have, Carl, most of it came from the maldistribution that came from the slavery in this country. Slavery maldistributed almost 100% of all this nation's wealth, power, resource, privileges, controls of all levels of government, and businesses into the hands of the dominant white society. It hasn't changed. It's still fixed and locked. That's why when the wealth was initially tied to land. And see, black folks don't own any land in the society of any consequence. Even after slavery, we got about 1920, we had about almost 20 million acres of land. Now we're down to something like about 300,000. Blacks don't own that thing. Every white person in this society got free land. That's what immigrants come in this country for. But we'll talk about all that, but the wealth is the thing that's key. And right now, black folk are not playing the wealth game. And the wealth that's in this country is locked into the white society. It's locked into their community, their culture, their institutions, their banks, their trust accounts, their inheritance. It's passed on from one family to the next. And the land alone that is locked in there, that's passed on from one generation to the next, and that during the land wealth goes up, it doubles and triples every 20 years. Black folk got it locked and boxed into the basement.
So what you saying, we should all get involved in real estate?
Well, no, I'm just using real estate as an example because now it's almost too late, Carl. See, that's what after the Constitution set up the system in this country in 1789, the next thing they did was to pass the first immigration and naturalization law that says this is basically a white country. And anybody on the people that come to this country got those who declare it as being white, or who can pass as white, or be classified or labeled as white. And if they come to this country, they can get what we call the American dream. And I don't see any blacks in the political arena, any place in the university saying, what is the American dream? The American dream meant this country was advertised around the world that anybody who is not black can come to this country and get free land. And that's they start off with George Washington. George Washington, the so-called first president of the United States, he got 100,000 acres of free land starting it off. Thomas Jefferson got 100,000 acres of free land. Patrick Henry, who says, give me liberty, give me death, he got 65,000 acres of free land. Every white person come here they got homesteaded, they got 640 acres of free land. And homes, and every slave they owned that they could prove if they were called head rights. They got another 150 acres of free land. The railroads in this country, they had something like about 15 railroads land to start them. The government gave them 23 to 24 million acres of free land. They gave them 6 miles of free land on each side of their railroads across the country. 6 miles on each side, and that land had multiplied in wealth, and became some of that wealth is still in these major businesses in this country. And even when they had the last thing in the 1780s, the last land rush, when Europeans poured into this country, the same kind of European assets you hear Hannity and Rush Limbaugh and O'Reilly talking about. They rushed into this country to get land. And in 24 hours, they picked up over 3 million acres of land in 24 hours crossing the Mississippi River. And yet, until you go out west, you see all
A way that we can close this gap. Am I correct?
you got to understand.
So hang on a sec, Doc, because we got to take a quick break here. I'll let you explain that to our folks. We got to check the